everyone! Are you interested in knowing what it's like to be an engineer? Well, that's the topic of my presentation today, and I will be sharing with you what an engineer does. I did some research myself and learned that an engineer is a person who designs or builds things to solve problems. They need to ask themselves, what problem is this invention going to solve? And more importantly, why do we need to solve this problem? There is more than just one type of engineer. Let's look at civil engineers first. A civil engineer is one that constructs buildings, roads, and bridges. A good example is the famous Golden Gate Bridge in California, which you probably heard of. In order for people to go in and out of San Francisco in the 1930s, they needed a bridge. So that's what civil engineers did. They built the amazing Golden Gate Bridge, which is now a landmark in San Francisco. Now, let's talk about electrical engineers. An electrical engineer is one who studies electricity and designs electrical systems like circuits and computer chips. One electrical object that we use pretty often is the dishwasher. Dishwashers solve the problem of people not wanting to wash dirty plates with their own hands. Microwave is another example of electrical engineers' work. If you look around your home, can you find some other products of electrical engineering? Moving on to mechanical engineers. A mechanical engineer works in a manufacturing factory and builds mechanical objects like machines and cars. For example, the Honda Motor Company was founded by Soichiro Honda. He was a mechanical engineer. The Japanese engineer established the Honda car. So the next time you enjoy a ride in your parents' Honda car, remember to thank Soichiro Honda for inventing it. The next type of engineer we will look at is a software engineer. They work on computers and other products that involve software, and they write programs so that the computers and other devices become more intelligent. A great example of a software engineer is Margaret Hamilton. She was the director of the software engineering division of the MIT Instrumental Laboratory, which developed onboard flight software for NASA's Apollo program. I think she is a great role model for girls who want to become software engineers. My dad is also an engineer. He is a systems engineer working for a company in Silicon Valley. Today, I'll be interviewing my dad to find out what a systems engineer is. Hi, Dad. Thanks for being here for this interview. In this interview, I'll be asking you a few questions to better understand your job as a systems engineer. Now let's get started, shall we?
All right, let's go.
What kind of projects are you working on?
Right now, I'm working on the most challenging engineering projects in the world. That is to make a self-driving car by integrating many different components. The projects are quite large as they involve many different types of engineers, managers, and technicians as well across many different departments.
What is one day in the life of a systems engineer?
A life of a systems engineer has many interesting activities in the day. There is usually several meetings, starting from a morning stand-up meeting with a group of engineers in software and hardware. In the stand-up meeting, people talk about what they did in the previous day, what they plan to do today, and whether there are obstacles they need other people's help. The systems engineer needs to know what is needed. We call them requirements. So we gather them by talking to users or product managers to find what the product should be like. We take notes and formally write them down so that other engineers can understand. The systems engineer needs to work on the design of the product by figuring out the different parts that will come together later on. We need to know how to put the parts together, which call them integration. We do a lot of tests, and in the day, we need to present to the other people how the products are coming together. So in summary, there are meetings in the morning. There are a lot of writing of requirements and design of the product with many different components. There are planning to do of how to put the components together and how to test to make sure the parts and systems work as desired, and more meetings to present the work progress.
That's quite interesting. What are a few differences between a systems engineer and a different type of engineer, like maybe a software engineer?
A systems engineer has to think about the big picture of how to write requirements, how to make a design of how to have different parts that can be put together, and how to test them if the parts and the system are good to go. Other types of engineers focus on those working in their specialty. For example, a software engineer or an electrical engineer would be good at writing code or make parts that uses electricity. They would be given a piece of a requirement from the systems engineer and write software code or make a design that will work as a small part. Then they would do some testing, and then when they're working, they give them back to the systems engineer to be ready to put together with other parts to make a system.
What are some of your favorite parts and least favorite parts about being a systems engineer?
My favorite parts of being a systems engineer are that I get to know all parts of the product instead of just one or two parts. I get to learn how many different parts work together to make a product, and I get to see the product being used by the end users, which is very rewarding. The least favorite parts are there will be no time to write software or make interesting mechanical or electrical designs. I miss the time for coming up with the detailed, inventive engineering ideas.
Thank you, Dad, for the interview. You really helped us understand what a systems engineer's job is like. Bye.
Thank you for interviewing me. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoy learning about the different types of engineers. Do you want to become an engineer yourself?